Welcome to the Sleon Productions podcast. Today, our guest is Dom Faussette. He is a leadership speaker, motivational speaker, corporate facilitator, and executive coach with the slogan, Think, React, and Lead. Hey, Dom, welcome to the show.
Thank you, sir. I greatly appreciate that, brother.
So, Dom, can you tell the audience a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Let me give you the short, dialed-in version. So, again, my name is Dom Faussette. I'm an ex-cop. I'm prior military, Air Force K-9 to be exact. I was a cop in Jackson, Mississippi once I got out of law enforcement. And, I became a cop with the hopes of making a positive impact on people's lives. But the streets are nasty, and there's no academy, there's no YouTube show or Netflix show that can prepare you for what you see and how people treat each other. And it took me down a very, very dark path. And one day I was put in a position to take somebody out, and I opted not to. But after effecting the arrests, once we kind of put hands on each other, I put my 2 weeks notice in, and I followed a journey of the corporate space. I didn't know what I was doing, but I just knew I didn't want to be a cop anymore. Like I didn't feel like that I was serving at my highest purpose. So I was in the corporate space for 14 years, and this week marks the first full year of entrepreneurship, and it took a lot to get here, but through all of my obstacles, you know what? I don't call them obstacles. I stutter when I speak. I have Tourette's, being diagnosed with PTSD. I mean, that kind of stuff happens, but it never stopped me from self-promotion in the corporate space. I mean, I was an AVP at Chase for a period of time, and I worked a bunch of different departments, and it was a day that I woke up and I realized that I was leading people. So I had people reporting to me that had a doctorate. And I'm thinking to myself, what in the world? I barely graduated high school. Like, how am I doing this? So I looked into this whole coaching thing, because in the corporate space, entrepreneurship's not a big thing. We don't follow entrepreneurs. Social media is kind of not our thing, but I looked into it and I took the leap, and I'm here, and I get to hang out with cool people like Santiago, and just connect and share my story on stage and with clients. And here I am. I'm based currently out of Phoenix, Arizona, is where I make my magic happen.
The first time I heard you speak, Dom, was at another podcast with Tyler, the Business Blast podcast, which I interviewed Tyler a couple months ago. And when I heard you speak,
Nice.
It was crisp. It was so motivating me. I mean, I was going through a regular day, nothing too crazy, nothing too down. And when I heard you, you really motivated me. How did you get that motivation? Was your dad a good motivating speaker? Did you learn this stuff with like the Army or with like the police department? How did you get this whole speaking thing going?
My dad's a pastor. So is he a speaker? Yes. Is he a motivational speaker? No. Both my parents are prior military, and they served a long time ago. I hit rock bottom. And when you struggle with PTSD, you don't realize that's what it is. You don't reach out to people. When I got home, when I moved back to Arizona from Jackson, Mississippi, I would sleep in my closet, like on the floor, because that's where I was comfortable. It was dark. I always kept a gun on me at all times, but that was a space that I couldn't control. I didn't sleep in my bed often. And because you don't share, you're not vulnerable, you're not authentic, you just go to work with this fake smile, you do things on your own. I didn't want anybody telling me what to do. I didn't want to see a shrink. But hindsight, when you see a man breathe his last breath as you're standing over him, it makes you realize how important life is and what people want out of life. Like this young man was asking me to text his mom, like, dude, I don't have your mom's phone number. And after he said that, he's probably died within 10, 15 seconds. But It wasn't, he didn't ask for things. He just wanted his mom. He was 24. So we're the same age at the time, but you find a way to pull yourself up by your bootstraps once life kicks you in the teeth. And one thing leads to another, and you start, I'm a reader. I read a lot of books, and I couldn't take the pain anymore. The emotional pain, and just had horrible relationships, and it was all me. Like, I was at fault for most of this stuff. And the only way I knew to get out of it was to just dig deep. And I learned a lot of these techniques and tactics in the military and the police department, but I think it's just an overall life experience. And I felt that I had a gift and that I could deliver a message to the world, but in the process, I had to fix Dom Faussette. And I'm not 100% there. But I'm closer today than I was yesterday. So that's my motivation is basically my mission in life is to change, is to positively impact one person's life every day for the rest of my life.
Can you tell us a little bit about your slogan, think, react, and lead? I like it, but how did you get that going? How did you figure that one out?
So I have a company called Leaders for Leaders, and that's the company I use when I do corporate facilitation. And the mantra for Leaders is think as an executive, react like a soldier, and lead. And that's a culmination of my life. I've been a soldier on a couple different platforms. I've been an executive. And to me, think, react, lead, I feel that, and this is how I break it down, this is what I do in my daily life, is I spend about 5% of the time thinking. Reacting is about 80% of the time, and the rest is leading. And I think most of society gets it wrong. They spend a large portion of their time thinking, and that's why so many people don't get any results, because they analyze everything. And when I say react, it's literally decision making. I mean, we can talk about business all day long, but let's simplify it. McDonald's hasn't changed its menu outside of the occasional McRib in quite some time. Yet when we go there, you stand in front of this superfluous amount of offerings and you eat the same thing every single time you go, but you look and you can't make a decision. Like, it's those little practices. Make a decision. Most people that I talk to aren't responsible for how the world turns. Like, we're not responsible for the political front. Like, our decisions really don't impact a lot of people, but we lack the ability to just react and make a freaking decision. So the lead part is kind of where the follow through is you make the decision. Now you do everything that's needed to do to make that decision a positive and successful one. Like, I left the corporate space, that's reacting. Now the leading part is all the administrative tasks that come along with being self-employed and all those other things, all the non-fun things. But that's how I came up with Think, React, Lead.
That's a beautiful story. It's just one of those things that people are just very fearful of making that next step and making that next chapter in their lives. What's the most common trait where you notice people that don't execute? What's the number one reason?
The number one reason is fear of judgment. In my experience, I mean, there's grown men and women. When I say grown, I'm talking like they have a career, they have a life from the outside, but they base their decisions or lack thereof off of what their parents might think or what their college buddies might think, or they don't even know who they are. So they don't know where the decision to make is coming from, right? I didn't feel like a man until I was like 27, 28 years of age. And I had already served my country. I had served on the city platform, and I had been in the corporate space for a minute. And it just, one day I woke up and I'm like, okay, now I feel like a man. But it started with the ability to make a decision. But yeah, it's a fear of judgment. I don't even think it's a fear of failure. It's a fear of how you're going to be perceived by your peers.
What have you learned from your business that you did not know before?
Entrepreneurs suck. They are not trustworthy people. And let me explain. in the military, there's what we call HILS: honesty, integrity, loyalty, and service. In the police department, it's serve and protect. Serve first, then protect. In the corporate space, banking specific, there's rules and regulations. Like if you don't follow certain rules and you mess up certain regulations, like you could go to jail. So there's accountability. In the corporate space lacks integrity. They lack service and loyalty and honesty. And my first year in business, now granted, I was doing this a little bit on the side as I was transitioning out, but my first full-fledged year in entrepreneurship, I realized the one thing that I could do to not get screwed in business going forward is to interview. For example, when you go to a company and you want to work there, they're not excited that you want to work there. There's typically an interview process. You submit information, you do a phone interview, then you do a face-to-face interview, and depending upon where your level of career is, you might have 3 or 4 interviews, and you might not get hired for 3 months to a year. I truly believe that if I would have taken that route, I wouldn't have lost the monies that I lost last year. And I think all entrepreneurs should make decisions not off of emotion, but interview people. Just because somebody tells you they're a digital marketer, that's fine. Interview 5 other people before you give somebody your money. And I think if we as entrepreneurs interview people and look at their referrals, then we can make an educated decision not off of emotion.
I agree. I think sometimes people, their emotions get ahead of themselves, and you don't think with your mind. Yeah. It happens to me all the time, especially when you're on the spot, when you don't make the right decision and you look back, I regret that moment. But what else can you do but just move on it and you just learn from it?
Exactly.
How's the internet changed your industry?
You know what? I didn't know this industry outside of the internet, right? And specifically social media. I was walking down the hall one day at work, and I did a lot of leadership facilitation at the place of employment. And one of my friends, who's not a social media guy, he just looks at me and says, "Bro, why aren't you doing videos on social media?" And I'm like, "Bro, I don't do social media. Like at the time I said, it's for kids. I don't do social media." He's like, "No, man, like you have a brand." Like he believed in me before I truly believed in myself. "You have a brand. You have something to offer." He said, "I can't do it. That's not my space. Like nobody's gonna listen to me." He said, "But I don't listen to anybody. I'm listening to you when you speak." I said, "Wow." So I didn't even look into it. I just started doing a video a day on Instagram. Like my first video was horrible. Not horrible, but the content was good. The lighting, I didn't even wipe my camera off on my phone. It was all blurry, but I did a video a day, and then I got comfortable with Instagram. Then I got comfortable with Instagram Story and Instagram Live when it came out, and then I would do the videos on Facebook, which as crazy as this sounds, I literally just got comfortable doing Facebook Lives. I don't know why that is. I just did. Then I started posting videos on LinkedIn, and then I started getting coaching clients, and then I started getting tagged to, "Hey, can you come speak out here?" I'm like, "Yeah." And so the internet specific to social media just has given me a platform, and I travel and speak. I don't have a speaker's agent, like most speakers have. It's just a different way to brand yourself. So it's allowed me to be a brand.
Which I have to agree with your friend. If I met you in person like today and you were not on the internet, I'll tell you, get on the internet, get on Instagram.
You punch me in the face. You punch me.
Have you noticed a big difference between, do you feel more comfortable doing videos or more speaking on person? To be honest.
You know what? I use videos. It depends on the platform. I'm very comfortable doing videos on Instagram. Not for some reason, I'm not that comfortable doing them on LinkedIn, although I'll post them. I've yet to go live on LinkedIn, and I used to not be comfortable doing Facebook. So to answer your question, I'm very comfortable on stage, which you would think it would be the opposite. But when I'm on stage, I can feel the audience. Like, I don't speak with a PowerPoint. I'll start to one day, just not today. It's not my thing. But when I'm on stage, like, I can see the tears coming out of a grown man's eyes. I can see the emotion as people's necks turn red, out of positive emotion as I hit the core of their issues. Like, you can hear a pin drop. I can hear the gasp of their breath. Like, there's just a connection, that person to person connection that you can't get on social media. So I prefer the stage. I'm way more comfortable and at home on stage.
How was, like, can you tell the audience what was your your first invitation to speak? How was it? How did you do it? Who knew who? Things like that.
You know what? It was, and I'm glad you asked that question. It was during Toastmasters. So Toastmasters is it's an international group where they basically teach you how to speak, be comfortable with your own voice. And there was one lady named Betty Covington at a Toastmasters group here, and she said, "Dom, you're gifted. Your voice, like the way you deliver your messaging, and you have no training, like, you're good." I'm like, all right, cool, whatever. And she told me to get involved with the speakers competition through Toastmasters. I said, okay, I did. So I practiced, and I have never rehearsed or practiced this talk. This I practiced for weeks, because you got to memorize stuff, and my memory is a little shot. So for weeks, I'm standing in front of my mom, who gives me like the rawest, illest feedback ever. Like, she's like, "No, that sucks. Start over. Do it again. Do it again. Do it again." And I got it down. But it was the first time I ever told my story, like part of my story, because I have a lot of aspects to it. But then I get to this event, and there's 4 or 5 people competing. Both of my brothers are criminal defense attorneys. They show up, and there's this guy that shows up who's a contestant. And my brother's like, "Do you know who that guy is?" I'm like, "Nah, bro. Well, I have no clue who he is." He's like, "How do you not know who he is? His face is on billboards and the buses and all the platforms all downtown." They're like, "He's like a multi-millionaire attorney." I'm like, "Well, you guys suck as motivational speakers, because that's not something I needed to know right now. But all right, cool. It's just competition." My mindset then was, he can't whoop me. Like, I always went back to that just because of how I was raised, or where I grew up. I was like, I'll knock him out with one hit. So that confidence in myself and no confidence in him, I was like, I'm going to crush him. He was very arrogant, and I won. And that was the first time I've won a speaking speaking session. And I was like, okay, I'm good. I'm very good. And then from there, a couple months later, somebody gave me a check for like $1,000, because they couldn't do a speaking engagement. They're like, "Dude, I made $2,000. I'm going to give you $1,000. But I need you to do this 4-hour facilitation." I'm like, "What? $1,000 for talking?" Done. I didn't even know it was a thing. And after that, I just looked into it. It's an $11 billion industry at the time. And I said, you know what? If I can just get a slice of that pie, how do I do it? And that got the ball rolling. And 3, maybe 4 years later, here I am now.
It's interesting you say that, because Toastmasters, wow, it might be the biggest club in the world. I had a feeling, because there's one in every city, every town.
Serious?
Yeah. And I had a few friends of mine that have done it, and it's which I should probably get involved, because, why not? If a person had to get involved with speaking, what would you tell them to do?
First, I would ask why they want to be a speaker. And I'm a speaker's coach. And what I have found is that some people want to speak because they want to feel like a rock star on stage. But the on stage standing ovation, like, that's like the tip of the iceberg. There's so much work that gets involved. Like, if you truly want to be a speaker and you have a message you want to share with the world, start with Instagram. And the reason I say Instagram is because you can't do anything longer on the front face of Instagram than 60 seconds. And that teaches people what their message is. It teaches people it shows people what messaging or messages radiate with which audiences. And do that every day. One quick tip that I've told people is just grab your phone, because I hear people, I don't know what to say. Okay, grab your phone, take a Post-it note, literally a Post-it note, so low tech. Take a Post-it note, write down the topic at the top, and then write down 2 to 3 bullet points specific to that topic. hold up your phone horizontal, hold it out, and hit record and do a video. And when you do your video, for example, I say, welcome to Think React Lead, so the name of my company. My name is Dom Faussette. Give it my name. I want to talk to you about blah, blah, blah. When I first started, I said, welcome to Think React Lead. My name is Dom Faussette, executive coach and leadership speaker. When you do that hundreds of times, people, they know who you are. And I figured this out. I went to MotoGP in Austin last year, and there was a couple from Mexico who also rides who rides Ducatis like my wife and I do. And he literally saw me. He's like, bro, you're Dom Faussette, executive coach and leadership speaker with Think React Lead. And I'm like, bro, who are you? Because to me, that was weird. But it happens. Like I go to the coffee shop with my wife or restaurants. I just been places and they're like, hey, aren't you Dom Faussette, executive coach and leadership speaker? So you're creating awareness. Don't just say your name. Don't just say your company. Let people know what it is that you do, right? And if you're a digital marketer, be very specific with what you do, because the people that can pay you for your services are people like me who are typically corporate guys trying to get out, and we don't know what digital marketing means. We don't even know what social media is for the most part. But so I would say start with Instagram and speak for free. Probably plan on doing about 100 free talks.
Wow. Yeah, you're right about that.
It is.
Yeah. And Instagram or social media gives you that platform. And you're right. I think Gary Vee, you probably heard of him. He actually spoke to a few free conferences. He would go and beg him, hey, can I speak at your conference? And now he gets $40,000 speaking session, which I probably think you do too. But
I'm not at the 40 grand yet, but I'm working on that. I literally got 2 $10,000 speaking engagements from Instagram. Wow. No ad space, no marketing, just showing up every day, being consistent and pushing forward. And as you're listening to this podcast, you're going to hear fluctuations in my voice. That's Tourette's. But it doesn't stop me from speaking. You might even hear me stutter. It doesn't stop me from speaking. I had an executive one day tell me, I liked your message, so did my team, but can I give you some feedback? I said, yes, of course. He said, it sounds too perfect. 5 seconds of my background. From the age of 5 through high school, I got pulled out of class multiple times a week for speakers coaching, right, through a therapist. So I was like the slow boy. And at least that's how I felt. And all those years, I'm working towards perfection. And by the time I finally am perfected, he tells me I sound too perfect, which means I'm disconnecting with the audience. Then I got comfortable with who I was, and I share my story when I speak. And that's how you're going to separate yourself from the masses if you want to be a speaker. But learn to connect with other speakers. I don't care how old you are. If you're 40, then that's just when you start. If you're 20, that's when you start. You're never too young or too old to speak. And don't chase the money, because I did that at first. Have a mission. My mission is change one life every day for the rest of my life. You can take that mission if you'd like, because I can't connect with people that you can connect with. I'm talking to your audience, but that's where you start. That's how you start.
I agree. When I was younger, I would follow a lot of comics out there, and they would just test the audience. Maybe this joke didn't do it, but maybe this one will, right, so you can break the ice. And you're right. Mm-hmm. I think you got to be, you got to fill it out. When I do a speaking engagement, I don't write down too much notes. I could have, some points, but then just try to freestyle a little bit so you get your right, your emotion out.
You don't got to think about it. Like when you freestyle on stage, you're literally shutting your mind off, and you're talking from your heart. Like, and you and I have both sat in conferences or listened to speakers where they just PowerPoint you to death, and they have no connection, and the sale is coming at the end. You're like, and you sat in front because that's what we do, guys like us do, and you're like, oh fudge, I can't leave. I got to listen to the rest of this. I'm like, and you tune out. Like, be okay with stepping off stage, get into your audience. Like I touch a lot, so I'll touch a shoulder as I'm walking by, because that's that person-to-person connection. And if you're going to a live speaking engagement and you're one of the speakers, show up hours early. So as people are walking into the door, you're the face that they see. And then you reference them during your talk. Say, hey, you know what? What's funny is I was talking to Stacy, who I met when I got here, and it's going to make her feel like a rock star. And then whoever her friends around her are, they're going to feel like pleasure by association, right? And that's how you grow your audience. You be personable. And I don't watch other speakers on YouTube because I'm still in the process of developing myself as a speaker. So while you're in that phase, find out who you are. Don't try to be like Gary Vee, Eric Thomas, Tony Robbins. Like, be you. There's a you in there waiting to come out. Find who he or she is and develop the heck out of her or him.
Which was my next question. Who is your favorite motivational speaker?
I want to say me, because I have a lot more to say. Not like on the podcast, but on stage. And you know what? If I can't think that I'm my favorite, then I don't have what it takes to be in this game, because it's a dog eat dog world in the speaker's game. Now, I would say that my favorite speaker is when somebody asks me questions like you're asking me, but they typically will message me in Instagram or they'll shoot me a text, and they'll tell me, this is my first time speaking. Like, I had a lady, a doctor in Germany, message me. She's like, I've been watching your videos. I'm about to get on stage in a couple weeks. Any tips? And they take the advice, they apply it, and they kill the stage. Like, those are my favorite speakers. People that have never done it and they're willing to take the risk to get on stage, get past their fears, or even just do it afraid. Like, those are my favorite speakers. Like, those people motivate me the most.
That's a great answer. That's very, very motivating. What is your favorite business book?
I have 2, maybe 3. So the first one is Dale Carnegie, How to Win Friends and Influence People. The second one is Chet Holmes, what's called The Sales Machine. And I could be off with the title, but it's Chet, C-H-E-T, Holmes, H-O-L-M-E-S. Fudge, what is, now I got to look it up. Chet Holmes is, because it's a dynamic book. Oh, the Ultimate Sales Machine, turbocharge your business with relentless focus on something or another. And then my book, I launched a book last year. It hit bestseller. The first book is called Think, React, Lead, When Success and Accomplishments Aren't Enough. And it wasn't my favorite at first because I just wrote it so I could have something tangible. So I can get, when you go to colleges and speak, they kind of expect you to have a book. But then people started reading it and lives started getting changed. And, guys like us get the messages on Instagram or, our Facebook Messenger or LinkedIn, and they recall things that we said, and we're like, I don't remember saying that, but thank you for the kind words. I appreciate that. So those would be, and I'll tag the last one. I mean, the Bible for me. I mean, I've read it cover to cover a couple times, and as I read a bunch of leadership books, there's so many lessons that are applicable in leadership that I can apply without going, like, not from a preaching standpoint, just I use them because most people know, like David and Goliath and things like that, and I can apply those stories to everyday situations. So that's my answer to that question.
Yeah, and I agree. I mean, Bible is definitely in my top 3 because it just applies principles, a lot of life principles, and you're able to apply it in life, in leadership and entrepreneurship and things like that. What is your favorite quote?
My favorite quote is one I've used a lot, and I don't know where it came from. My previous boss or director used to say it: "Be the obvious choice."
Wow.
And what I take away from that is, when I heard that, it's do everything that you have to do to stand out. And there's 2 kind of paths I took with that. I looked at Tony Robbins, I looked at John Maxwell, and I looked as I started my speaker's journey, and I said, okay, so I got to do videos. 1, check. I got to do a book. Check. I have to have a podcast. Check. I have to play nice in this space. Check. I have to not get my feelings hurt. I got to get my business cards. I have to not do my own website, but pay for somebody, a professional, to do my website. Like my website looks legit, not overdone, not tacky. You can tell I didn't do it. Hire a PR so I can get on local TV. Like all these little things, right? And like I have a step and repeat behind me when I go speak. Certain events, if I can carry it with me, I take it with me. Branding, great. I paid for a branding coach, and my brand is on this. My step and repeat behind me. It's on my motorcycle. It's on my truck. I have t-shirt. Like it's the name of my book. It's everything. So, and you know what? I forgot the question.
What's your favorite quote?
Yes. Okay. I digress.
No, it's okay.
Yeah. Be the obvious. And the other thing, and people forget about this. I want your audience, and I say this on stage, whatever the negative stereotypes are of your race, your gender, your ethnic background, maybe even your religion, don't do any of them. And as long as you leverage that concept, you will be successful.
Wow. That's amazing.
Take in.
A couple quotes there.
Yes.
Yes. Back to like the whole book writing thing. Was that like how difficult was it to get your book out? Was that something that you had to go through a publisher, or did you do independent publishing? That whole process. Tell us about it.
It was independent publishing, but I didn't have the luxury of sitting down and writing a book. I hired somebody. I voiced the book. They transcribed what I verbalized, and I found somebody who had a process, and I voiced the book, typed a bunch of stuff up, and it's work. Even though I didn't sit down with pen and pad and write the book from cover to cover, I spoke it, but there's a lot because you got to draw on hurt. You got to draw on wins just throughout your life. There's just so much of your life. If you're going to write a book specific to, the title, whatever that may be, it's got to be you. So I hired somebody, and they helped me through the process. And then I had a branding guy do the cover. And it was a long process, but I'm glad I did it.
Yeah. And when you're a speaker, you think that holds a lot more leverage?
I say yes and no. Yes, if they've never seen you speak. So I'll say me, if they've never seen me speak, no, if the first time they've ever seen me, because they don't know me from social media, no, if I'm in person, because the moment I have the mic in my hand and the MC stops introducing me, I go all in. Like I don't warm the audience up to Dom Faussette. I just go fire. And it makes me feel comfortable. Like when I get introduced, I used to Dom Faussette, author, coach, speaker coach, military, ex-cop, but now I'm so far past that. I don't need an introduction because I am the obvious choice.
Yeah. And, back to what you said about branding, me too. I put card magnets. I have T-shirts. You got to brand yourself. You got to go out there. And it's just a game of attention. You need to get, people's attention of who you are. And like I said, people will randomly, point you out from hey, you're Dom Faussette. But you got to be ready for those moments. Yeah, man. What's up? What's going on? Tell me your story,
Right. Don't be the jerk. Don't be cool online and be a jerk in person. That's so many social media influencers do that. And then the other thing is when you step outside of your house, you need to look the way you look on social media. I might go to the grocery store, but I'm going to go in either one of three things: jeans and cowboy boots and a t-shirt with my logo on it, a button up like I'm wearing now and slacks, or if I'm headed to the gym, I'm going to wear gym clothes, but I still have my t-shirt with my logo on it. And I've been stopped in the gym. Hey, I recognize that logo. You spoke at so-and-so's event. Are you Dom? Yes. It's every day is branding. Every day is an interview. You don't have the luxury of coming out with your hair not cut if you have hair, or, just looking, as my mom or my grandmother was, a hot mess. That's not a luxury as you to build your brand, because all it takes is one time to miss out on an opportunity.
You're right. Opportunities only come so often. It's like sports. You have that You have that one shot for goal. You got to make it, or else you might not have that chance ever again. Ready for some random questions?
All right, hit me, bro.
How much can you bench?
You know what? Up until a couple weeks ago, I never knew, but I think I hit. Let me see. Let me do the math. So I did the bar, which is 45, then 245, so that puts me at 135. Then I did 225, so that's 50, 150, so that's 195, and then 210s on each side. That's 205, 215, and then I did 5s on each side. So the most I've done is 225.
Not bad. What does
that's like 5.
Yeah. What does a global entrepreneur mean to you?
A global entrepreneur is somebody that has a reach with their message all over the world. Like, you don't have to go there. Like, I have a guy that every time I go live, he's out of Scotland, and every time I go live, he jumps on. I got a couple guys out of Australia. Like, I would consider myself a global entrepreneur because I have touches globally.
I think you are. Can you survive in the woods for 1 month?
For 1 month?
Yeah.
Like, by myself?
Yeah, by yourself.
Like 30 days? Depending upon the woods, yes. Like, depending upon the season. If it's January, it's a strong pot, and I'm in, like, I don't know, West Virginia, probably not. But if it's not snowing, yeah, I can survive.
Woods in Australia. Who knows what that looks like?
You know what? No, because everything out there kills you.
Ooh.
And I don't know how to use a boomerang. And there's what I've seen from Crocodile Dundee. I've never been to Australia. There's a lot of dirt, which means there's a lot of sun, which means there's not a lot of shade. I would do my best to survive, but knowing me, I would probably eat the wrong thing and it would kill me.
You probably will go to Australia. I know you're going.
I want to go to West Australia to go surfing. I want to go to Perth to go surfing. I don't want to go there on vacation. I want to speak there and let that money pay for my experience there.
How do you have your pancakes?
My wife teases me. So I make pancakes and I put them in a bowl. I take some butter, a lot of syrup in another bowl, heat it up, put some cinnamon in there, and I pour that over my pancakes. And my syrup goes above the pancakes, wow. And now I'm ready to sit in front of television and eat.
That is a good idea. I might try that this weekend.
Yeah, it's so legit.
Would you rather swim with sharks or alligators?
I'm going to go with sharks. So I was in Tahiti a couple years ago, and the first day there, I had food. I took it in the water. It was bread and all the pretty fish. I had my GoPro. All the pretty fish are coming up, eating the bread. 3 days later, I'm like, you know what? Let me take this sausage. It's breakfast sausage. So I jump off the overwater bungalow and I go out there and I got sausages and I'm doing my thing. My wife jumps out. The water's crystal clear and I'm diving down and all of a sudden I see this shark and I'm thinking to myself, I can't go out like this. This is so not cool. So I put the GoPro in my hand that I was okay with losing. And I told my wife, I was like, babe, hey, why don't you let's go back inside. I'm ready to go eat. And I didn't want to tell her there was a shark in the water. Long story short, once we got back ashore or in our bungalow, I pulled the video up on my GoPro. I said, this is why I told you to come in. She's like, you can't take sausage in the water. That's so stupid. I'm like, oh, it's stupid now. You didn't bring that up when we were in the water. So yeah, sharks.
Sharks. That's a good answer. How can people reach you?
You know, they can find me on my website, thinkreactlead.com. That's an option. I'm Dom Faussette on my social media platform. So Instagram, Dom Faussette, F as in Foxtrot, AUSSETTE. Facebook's the same thing. My YouTube channel is Think React Lead. So there's plenty of ways, or just call me 602-481-0650. I got 60 voicemails to listen to. So if you text me, that'd be better.
Yes, and then people could also see you in person in speaking engagements. It could be anywhere, but yeah, go to his website.
Totally.
Hopefully, I'll get to meet you in person. I'm not sure if you have any Miami plans, but let me. But I'll definitely follow you if you come to Miami.
I'm trying to get wherever I can. So if you know of any stages that I can jump on, let me know. If your audience knows of any stages I can fly to and jump on anywhere in the world, let me know. And I am there. And if somebody in your audience is the one that brings me on stage to speak with other influencers, I'll bring you backstage and introduce you to all the other influencers there if that's something that you're interested in.
Dom, wow, I'm really glad that you came onto the show. Very motivating. And like I was saying, like once I heard you like the first time on that podcast, I was like, wow, who is this guy? I was pretty much saying, who is this guy? Went to the little description of that podcast, went to the website, like it was your website, add you on LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, all of it. And very motivating. And I know that you like motor sports, so that's pretty interesting. Any closing words?
Yeah, man. And not to sound cliche, but it's never too late to start. And ask yourself at the end of every day, or maybe when you're tired in the middle of the day, sometimes I take naps, but ask yourself, what can I do next? Because there's always something that you can do next. But as you're building your business or trying to promote in your career, you get your home right. You can't lead you can't lead the world from the outside of your front door if the inside of your front door and everything before it isn't taken care of, isn't rectified. Fortunately for me, I have a very supportive wife. We have business meetings together. We date, but there's nothing more important than your children and your spouse and even your family. And I want you, whoever's listening to this, if you feel that there's somebody in your life that owes you an apology, they don't. Let it go. Learn to forgive. Like if you can't forgive, you can strive towards success as much as you want. You'll never be successful. Success is a feeling. It's not monetary. So learn to forgive, place your family first, and reward yourself. Like I sometimes struggle with appreciating Dom Faussette and feeling that I'm not worthy. That happens sometimes, but reward yourself, whether it's a trip to the ice cream store, a movie by yourself, a vacation, a shirt, or a bike, whatever it is, just reward yourself and get comfortable with who you are.
Wow. Wow, that's beautiful. And you're right. I think you have to, get your home in order and fix yourself. It's hard because, you got to beat your pride and things like that. Well, Dom, thanks very much for joining the Sleon Productions podcast. And I will follow you for if you keep posting on Instagram, I'll be watching. Thank you.
I do every day, brother. I appreciate your time, man. Thanks for what you do for our community.